thank you again for joining in for this afternoon press conference. Quite a bit has happened from this morning that has changed to this afternoon, so we want to make sure that you're completely updated on what all of those things are. So I think before we get started, I'm just going to turn it over to John Quagliarello. I'm sorry. To John Quagliarello, and let him go ahead and give the update on where we are now as of the 5 o'clock.
Thank you, Governor. Well, here's the latest on the warnings. The hurricane warnings have been extended up the coast all the way up to the South Santee River, as has the storm surge warnings. And a tropical storm warning is now in effect for the northern portion of the South Carolina coast, as well as a storm surge watch. Right now, Matthew is a dangerous Category 4 hurricane heading toward the Florida coast. The storm eventually will turn up and approach the South Carolina coast late Friday night into Saturday morning. If you look at the latest forecast track from the National Hurricane Center, you see that they've actually shifted the track slightly closer to the coast, which is cause for concern. It's going to mean some stronger winds, greater storm surge, and maybe some heavier rainfall with that. Our greatest concern right now, I should say also, as it's moving off the South Carolina coast, we still are expecting it to be a strong Category 2 hurricane with winds around 110 miles per hour. Our greatest concern right now in terms of impact is the potential for storm surge. Right now we're looking at the potential for disastrous and life-threatening storm surge inundation becoming more likely for the southern coast of South Carolina. In fact, if you live in or south of Charleston, the storm surge with this storm is likely to be greater than what was experienced during Hurricane Hugo for those locations. Significant damage to coastal structures due to the combination of very high inundation, battering waves, and high tides is expected. Some particularly vulnerable areas that we're concerned about include Hilton Head Island, Hunting Island, Folly Beach, Wattle Dunes, and Edisto Beach. Roads in and out of barrier islands will likely become impassable due to the surge. If you don't evacuate now, you may become stranded. Significant flooding is possible across much of the Charleston Peninsula as well, due to the storm surge and heavy rainfall that is expected. In terms of rainfall, we're looking at 8 to 14 inches of rain across the eastern part of the state, and because of that, we have flash flood watches in effect for most of the Midlands and coastal part of the state. In terms of wind, extensive tree damage with many trees down on homes and on roadways is likely, and widespread long-duration power outages could also occur. The National Weather Service continues to urge anyone living in an evacuation zone to heed the advice of emergency managers and get out and evacuate inland if asked to do so. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. You know, and I just want to stress, this is, I know we've been preparing, and I know everybody's been talking about lane reversals and everything else. This is the time we absolutely need you to go out. I mean, when we're looking at storm surges that surpass Hugo, you know it's a problem. And when you're looking at the tropical winds that are coming in, the rainfall that we could have, if it slows down considerably more rainfall, all of those are factors. So, you know, because of how this has shifted, we've had some changes. First, I want to thank the President for his call today. He did call and offer a direct line to him for anything that we need, and had his prayers for the people of South Carolina, and said that they would continue to be on standby. FEMA is on the ground as of now, and our federal emergency declaration for direct assistance has been approved, which means anything prior to the storm that we need, we now have. So cots for shelters, food, generators, all those things that we're trying to do to prepare before, we now have direct access to as well. I want to say that I can't thank enough, and I hope that the people of South Carolina will thank them, all of our law enforcement men and women, all of the National Guardsmen, all of our DOT crews. Every one of them has had long shifts, not a lot of sleep. They are doing all this to take care of you. They are doing all this to prepare. If you respect what they're doing, please evacuate, because they're doing this to save you. And eventually we're gonna have to move them out so that we can make sure that they're safe. So I do wanna thank all of them for putting in the long hours and doing what they're supposed to. So due to the increased storm surge and timing of it, when the tropical storms will hit, we have ordered an evacuation for additional areas of Jasper and Colleton counties that are a little bit more inland. So now it's not just Zone A, it is Zone B. So you can see on the yellow parts of there that we have now added those areas. and that we want them to evacuate as soon as possible due to those storm surges. We will probably stop the lane reversal tomorrow on I-26, and that is because the storm is starting to move in faster. We need to reposition the people, our men and women on the ground, and so that they're safe. We need to reposition the equipment to get ready for post-storm, and so you will see us stop that tomorrow. That means if you want to drive 26 east, you can. If you want to drive 26 west, you can. But we're hoping that everybody's headed this way. But in terms of the ease of that, you know, lane reversal, you only have until tomorrow to use that. So everybody has made record time. Everybody has been really pleased with the lane reversal. Please take advantage of the fact that it's there now. We can't promise you what you're going to have after we go forward. As of 3 p.m. today, we had 280,000 people who have evacuated. That is up from 175,000 this morning. So we appreciate the South Carolinians who are being, you know, or who are listening to the guidance that we're giving and being careful in terms of that. We hope to see stronger numbers now that we've put in those evacuations for Georgetown and Horry and parts of Jasper and Colleton, that those numbers will continue to increase, but we're at a $280,000 number right now. We will be closing down our high-level bridges once we hit the 40-mile-an-hour winds. So bridges like the Ravenel, the 526, those will be closed, and you'll see that start to happen soon as we see the winds are going to start to come in sooner than we thought. Our law enforcement and National Guard members, they are now transitioning over into the security phase. So you're going to start to see them move off of the traffic side of things and get ready for recovery. And so with that, if they are starting to move out, that means you should already be moved out. So if we're already moving them out, that's a big sign that we need to make sure that you're moving out, and you're moving out quickly. We do have now 64 shelters open. That's up from 38 this morning. We have 1,305 residents. That was up from 627 this morning. We now have, which I'm pleased to say, 3 pet-friendly shelters. So we had 2 in the Low Country. We now have 1 in Spartanburg as well. We have 3 special needs shelters that are open, but we also have 5 additional on standby as those are needed. All of our utility partners, I want to thank them because they're always fantastic during these situations, but our utility partners have partnered up with the National Guard and with law enforcement, as well as DOT, to make sure that they can go in as soon as possible. We are expecting extended outages, and we're expecting a lot of outages. And so for that, from that respect, we are trying to get in front of this as best as we can, but we do expect those outages to occur. And then finally, the hotel status. We are seeing rooms pretty much booked all over the state, not counting the Low Country. No rooms left in Greenville or Spartanburg or Asheville. So right now there are 3 hotels in Anderson that still have some rooms available, and then also Charlotte is the only option left to do. I will tell you, if you go to Airbnb, there are people who are offering their homes for shelter as well, just for disaster recovery at no cost. So we would advise you to look at that as well. We are getting an increased number of sandbag requests, and Director Sterling at Corrections has done a great job. He has now moved up to where I think they're doing 15,000 to 20,000 bags a day. We will have up to 50,000 bags tomorrow to try and keep filling those requests and needs, but we are ahead of schedule on what the requests are now, and we'll continue to do that. What is very telling is Beaufort Memorial is evacuating their hospital. If you have a hospital that is evacuating, that is all the more reason why the residents in those areas need to evacuate. This is really a serious storm. We have in every way tried to prepare as much as possible to keep you safe as possible. But we can't take you by the hand and bring you to the upstate. We can't take you by the hand and say we need to get you out of there. I am begging you at this point to understand the seriousness of the storm, to understand that storm surges at those levels above ground, imagine the floor to the ceiling, and you're talking about those types of storm surges. That is not something you want to get caught up in. And I won't be able to get any of our law enforcement or guardsmen to you during that time. So it is very important for you to strongly consider evacuating if you haven't already. We thank you for everyone who has. I think we've had so many responsible citizens move in a good way and move early, and so we're very grateful for that. But if you really want to thank a law enforcement officer or thank a guardsman or a DOT crew member, then evacuate, because they've done all this for you. They've done all this to try and keep you safe, and so the best way to respect them is to save your life, save your family, and not take any risks as we go forward. With that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions for me or anyone behind me.
Governor Haley, following up on the Beaufort Memorial evacuation, can you enlighten us with some more details about other hospitals, other facilities in the Low Country that have evacuated? I think Director Heigl mentioned some earlier.
I'll let Director Heigl take that.
Yes, we've had, as of about 2 o'clock this afternoon, 88 different facilities that are regulated by DHEC that have evacuated. Beaufort Memorial, of course, being the most recent major evacuation. So we've been working diligently with those facilities to get their patients and or residents moved to other facilities.
And are they other facilities in the state, upstate? Do you know where predominantly they're being moved to?
They are predominantly being moved other places in state. We do have a few that have moved out of state.
Any other questions?
Governor, following up on the federal assets that you guys and the direct assistance, can you elaborate more on what that gets you guys and how that helps out already?
It's anything that we need that we don't have. So for example, we were talking about generators. There's a shelter that doesn't have a generator, you know, we'll be able to do that. It's additional cots, it's food, it's, you know, baby formula and all those things that we knew we were short. It's anything that comes up that we need, even mobile medical, if those are the things that we need to have. That early direct assistance coming from FEMA is invaluable, and to be able to have that, it's basically our support system for making sure we're doing our job, and anything that comes up last minute that we don't have, they're kind of our security blanket to make sure they come in and finish up those requests.
And for the Adjutant General, is it still 2,000 National Guardsmen still on active duty, or what are we looking at right now?
That's correct. We still have 2,000 on, and that we have alerted another 3,000 to be prepared to mobilize if necessary and when necessary.
Has there been discussion exactly when the roads eastbound are going to be shut down, or is that something that's left up to the local level?
Christy? Oh,
I'll take that. Tomorrow morning, we'll start to flush the reverted side back to the normal flow of traffic. So hopefully by noon we'll have things back to a normal pattern.
she wants to know when you're going to close down roads.
As far as closing down the roads, normally we just return them to the normal flow, and again, as the governor mentioned earlier, we have to clear the equipment, we have to remove the officers from the roadways to keep them out of peril, and have the equipment accessible for post-response.
Governor, the 280,000, is that of the 500,000, or where are they coming
It
from?
is, and now keep in mind that the 500,000 included Georgetown and Horry, and the Jasper and Colleton. So we hope that number will get stronger, but 280,000 up from where we were this morning at 175. It looks like people are moving. Everybody's starting to see it, and in all honesty, it's about a lot of what we said this morning. They're seeing their stores closed down. They're seeing their pharmacies closed down. They're seeing the gas stations closed down. Everybody else is leaving, and so I think people are realizing that it's time to go.
So 280 includes the Horry Georgetown.
Well, it will be 500,000 is who are all the people that we want to evacuate. But Horry Georgetown, we just started today, so I think we'll have better numbers tomorrow.
Governor, have the Greenville buses that stayed down there in North Charleston been needed?
The last pickup was at 6 p.m. today in North Charleston, and the remainder were all going back to Greenville.
How many people utilize the buses?
67.
Yes, please.
Thank you,
And then,
Governor.
of course,
Yes, we transported we used 67 of the buses to transport folks from nursing homes out of the area of danger. So we were able to utilize at least 67 of them. We are in the process now of decommissioning the bus operation over the next few hours to get them back out of harm's way as well.
And Secretary Hall, was that just from Beaufort and Charleston counties?
That
just
was
Charleston?
primarily from the Tri-County area, Charleston primarily.
and again, thank you to Greenville Schools as well as Lexington 1 and 5 for helping us with that.
We're being told that 2 nursing homes were evacuated from the Low Country. Is there specifics on where the residents went to?
Yes, I think we had talked about that earlier, but we did have 2 nursing homes that evacuated. That was yesterday, right?
That was, and that's been successfully completed with no issues.
And they're already moved and in place.
But do we know where?
I actually don't have that information, but we do know, I just don't know.
Thank you.
Governor, have you spoken with your counterparts in Georgia and North Carolina, and if so, what have been the details of those discussions?
So what we started, because we thought it was really important that the states talk, is we started every day having Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina talk together. And especially in light of Florida's evacuation, Georgia's evacuation, it was more to just make sure that we were all working together and that we weren't doing harm to any other state, but we were only helping in terms of what we need. Those state-to-state calls have been great. Personally, we've gotten calls from Governor Hogan, Governor Abbott, Governor McCrory and I stay in contact. A lot of people across the country have been calling and wanting to offer help and assistance in any way that we need, and we always appreciate that.
Is there any worry about any influx of people, say, from Florida, especially coming up 95, and how that might impact South Carolina at all? Anything?
Well, that's a lot of the reason why we did the state-to-state calls, so I'll let you talk about that.
Yes, we know that Georgia's operating their lane reversal now of I-16. So the dialogue would be for Georgia officials to evacuate west. Obviously, we will not encourage our residents to evacuate south on I-95. We've seen some traffic on I-95, but it's not to the point where we cannot push the traffic coming from US 270 onto 95.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I will tell you that we have all done a lot of work to prepare for this. This is a scary storm. This is a storm that should be taken seriously. We really need you to evacuate. I don't want to have to deal with anyone losing their life or anything happening, nor do any of the guardsmen, the troopers, and everybody else that are working there. I know people always say, oh, it'll pass, it'll pass. It is getting worse, and we are seeing that it's getting worse. The storm surges are worse, the tropical wind speeds are worse, the rainfall numbers are worse. Please don't find any excuses to do this. There is no excuse to risk your life. There's no excuse to risk the life of your family members. What we want you to know is if you've got your pets, pick them all up and make sure you go to an area that will allow you to have your pets. If you have elderly parents, if you have other people, make sure they're all safe. Check your neighbors, check all of the people around you, just to make sure that they know that they need a plan and have a plan. Like we said in Charleston, the last buses have left now in terms of that. So we want to make sure that we get everybody moved out as we need to, and so please go to www.scemd.org. It has all of the information you need for evacuation routes, for shelters, for what you'll need in the shelters, and additional information going forward. But at this point, I will tell you we have started having a chaplain in our conference meetings, and that is because now is time for the state to pray, and we are praying for every citizen in South Carolina to help us help you, and we're praying for certainly our friends in Florida and Georgia who are going through a hard time right now. So thank you very much. We will have another press conference in the morning.
Thank you, Governor.